Okay, so have you ever thought about this whole, like, finding real love thing? Keeping it. And you're also, like, super into personal growth.
Oh, yeah.
Well, get this today's deep dive. It's going to get kind of deep with Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, from her interview on the Jay Shetty podcast. You know Jay Shetty, right?
Former monk, yeah.
Exactly.
Big podcast guy now.
Huge. All about well-being and finding your purpose and all that good stuff.
Okay.
And honestly, I went into this expecting, light and fun, Drew, but she got real about her struggles.
Growing.
But what she's learned, one thing that really stood out was how she and Jay Shetty both kind of challenged this whole pedestal we put romantic love on.
It's like the ultimate goal for so many people, right? Find the one.
Yeah. But Shetty says, putting romantic love above all other kinds of love, it can create so much pressure.
And it can totally mess up how we see a fulfilling life,
Drew is totally agreeing.
Yeah.
She talked about how much fulfillment she gets from her daughters, her friends, and her work. Like, she's been single for 7 years, and she's thriving. It's like she's redefined what a rich and meaningful life can be.
That's so important to hear, especially now we're bombarded with this find the one message everywhere.
Constantly.
And it sets up these crazy expectations that can lead to, well, just more heartache.
Totally. And Drew even said she's kind of hesitant to date right now because things are so good.
Interesting.
She's got this incredible balance, and she doesn't want to mess it up.
Yeah, I can see that. Makes sense.
But then it's like, how do you protect yourself but still stay open to love,
Yeah, that's the balance, isn't it?
And it leads right into the next big thing, self-love and inner work. Drew had this analogy about investing in yourself the same way you'd invest in a romantic partner. She called it making yourself your partner.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Shifting that focus inwards, you become your own source of love and support.
It reminded me of the story Drew told about her therapist, Barry. He actually quit on her at one point.
Oh.
Because she wasn't dealing with her drinking. He was like, you got to do the inner work first.
That's a bold move for a therapist.
Right. But Drew said she respected him so much for it.
Yeah, I can see why.
She knew he was right, and it finally pushed her to confront something really hard.
And that's usually where the real growth happens, isn't it? Facing those uncomfortable truths.
And doing the work, it's not always fun, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely. It's interesting, thinking about Drew's life, her upbringing, she spent time in an institution as a teenager.
I know. Wild, right?
Yeah.
2 whole years.
That could have been so damaging, but Drew actually says it shaped her approach to communication and honesty.
Yeah, she talked about these intense group therapy sessions.
Oh, wow.
Where families would just lay it all out there, their issues, everything.
That's intense.
It showed her the power of vulnerability and creating a space without judgment.
Like a radical sense of safety, right? To be real, share your deepest truth.
Exactly. And learn from each other.
Wow. It's so cool how that whole experience kind of bled into the way she runs her own show,
Totally.
Like she creates that same openness and authenticity.
She really does. She's always encouraging her guests to share their stories.
Their struggles, everything. Speaking of being vulnerable, can we talk about Drew's Jack Burger Post-it note idea?
Oh my gosh, yes. I know it sounds random, but
It's brilliant.
it is. Okay, for those who haven't seen Sex and the City,
Yeah, I gotta explain that one.
there's this episode where Carrie Bradshaw's boyfriend, Berger, breaks up with her
On a Post-it note.
on a Post-it.
Yeah.
Brutal. But Drew actually sees it as, like, this act of honesty.
Interesting take.
She says it's the kindest thing you can do if you're not into someone.
Because they can move on, right?
Yeah, it gives closure instead of all that agonizing wondering.
Makes sense. Just be direct, even when it's hard.
And Drew even said you can use that same principle for any relationship,
Oh, interesting.
not just romantic ones, any relationship that isn't working anymore.
I like that. It's like empowering yourself to create that closure.
It really hit home for me because I had this friend who ghosted me after like years of being close.
Oof, that's rough.
It took forever to get over. If she'd just been honest, even if it hurt, I think I would heal way faster.
Totally. It's funny how Drew's way of handling emotions, which seems kind of unconventional,
Yeah.
it actually lines up with some of Jay Shetty's stuff.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, Shetty talks about calming the mind through breathing exercises.
Right.
And Drew is all about taking time outs during arguments, to cool down.
It's like they're both saying, don't just react, take a sec, get centered, then decide how you want to respond.
Such a good skill. Doesn't always come naturally, but it can be so powerful.
Definitely. Oh. And there was this one part in the podcast that just shifted something for me.
What was that?
It was when Jay Shetty asks Drew, who do you want to be?
I love that question. It's so simple but profound.
Right. I was expecting her to, like, name some icon, a role model.
Some amazing person.
But her answer was so unexpected. She said she wants to embody the qualities she admires in her close friends.
Her friends, not some celebrity or guru.
Nope. Just these normal people who've been in her life forever.
What qualities, though? What does she see in them?
She didn't get super specific, but she talked about this balance they have of fun, spontaneity, and emotional maturity.
That's beautiful. It makes role models seem so much more attainable, you know?
It's like it doesn't have to be some perfect, unattainable figure.
You can find inspiration in the real messy lives of people you love.
Exactly. It reminds me of something my grandma always says.
Oh, what's that?
Look for the good in people, and you'll always find it.
Love that.
It's like, instead of focusing on what's wrong or missing, we can choose to be inspired by the good, even the imperfections.
So true. And that kind of leads into another big theme, trusting your gut.
Oh, yeah, they talked about that a lot.
Shetty brought up the gut as a source of wisdom.
And Drew was all about it.
It's interesting because so often we're told to ignore our gut.
Overthink everything.
Yeah.
Be logical.
But what if those gut feelings are actually based on years of experience, subconscious observation?
Like a built-in guidance system that we're always ignoring.
Exactly. And Drew's therapist, Barry, talked about how ancient wisdom traditions really valued the gut, you know?
It's like we've gotten so disconnected from our bodies that we've forgotten this ancient wisdom inside us.
And I love that Drew's bringing it back. It's like a reminder to tap into that primal knowing, trust ourselves more deeply.
It's so true. I can think of so many times I ignored my gut and regretted it.
Oh, tell me about it.
Like the time I took that job, everyone said it was perfect, but something felt off. And guess what? Total nightmare.
Classic gut feeling gone wrong.
The worst. But it's like our alarm system is going off, but we try to silence it because it's inconvenient.
We're uncomfortable.
Totally. But maybe it's time to start listening.
I think so. So what does all this mean for our listeners? What's the takeaway from this Drew Barrymore deep dive?
Good question. I think the biggest takeaway is this. Prioritize inner work. Cultivate self-love. Learn to trust your gut.
It's about recognizing that romantic love isn't the only path to happiness.
It's about building strong relationships with ourselves and the people around us.
Relationships based on honesty, vulnerability, real support.
And it's about remembering that even someone like Drew Barrymore, with all her success, is still figuring things out.
Still working on herself, still growing. It's a good reminder that personal growth is a journey.
Not a destination.
It's about embracing the messiness, the imperfections, the constant learning.
And finding inspiration in the everyday moments, the people in our lives.
Like Drew's friends.
Just being themselves. It
Yeah.
makes you wonder what she sees in them that she wants for herself, you know?
Right. Maybe it's their kindness, their resilience, their humor.
Maybe it's just their ability to be present, embrace life's chaos.
Without letting it drag them down.
Whatever it is, it clearly resonates with her.
Deeply. And that's what makes this whole conversation so fascinating.
It's not about some rigid formula.
For happiness or success.
It's about finding what works for you, what lights you up, what makes you feel alive.
Yeah. And it's like what we were talking about before with her therapist even, right? Like doing the inner work.
Exactly. And that leads me to a question for our listeners, you know, thinking about this whole Drew Barrymore thing.
Oh, yeah.
What's your gut telling you?
Right now.
Are you putting off some decision because you're scared to trust your intuition?
Maybe it's a relationship that just isn't working.
A job that's sucking the life out of you?
Or some creative thing you've been putting off.
What if you listened to that voice inside and actually, you know, took a step in a new direction?
It might be scary.
For sure.
But it could also be like the most freeing thing ever.
And remember, you don't need to have it all figured out right now. Just take it step by step.
Breathe.
Trust that you're exactly where you're supposed to be on this whole crazy journey we call life.
And you know, maybe by tapping into your own inner wisdom, you'll inspire someone else to do the same, right?
That's it for our deep dive into Drew Barrymore. We hope you got something out of it. This whole journey into love and life and inner work.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep trusting your gut.